I'm James Cloutier. I was a former Peace Corps volunteer in Kenya, 1964 to 66. Happened to be very fortunate to be the first Peace Corps group into the country. My job was to work in the Ministry of Lands and Settlement, which overseed the transfer of land that formerly belonged to the colonial citizens to African ownership. My job as an artist, I was very fortunate in that I got to use my skills creating an audio-visual program for creating educational materials for all these farmers that were moving back on the land. The only disappointment in my experience was being stationed in Nairobi. I wanted to be up country, but being in Nairobi was better than not being in Kenya at all. So one of my favorite stories was when we were on safari. We'd been on the road. There were 4 of us. We'd been on the road for probably about a week. Hadn't had a shower. We found this one place in Uganda. It was a district commissioner's sort of vacation house. We got permission to stay there. And as soon as we got there, it started raining. The skies opened up. There was this deluge. We took our clothes off, ran out there and outside the house and soaked down. And one of the guys was a little bit late. All 3 of us got washed down. This guy finally got out there. In the middle of his shower, covered with soap, the rain stopped as quickly as it started. And he was standing there just looking around like, how can I rinse off? How can I rinse off? And I managed to get a photograph of that. Standing there, bare naked, with his butt showing and looking around. And I later on made it into a Playboy calendar. And got a big hit out of that. Unfortunately, he passed away of melanoma about 10 years ago, but I went to his memorial service, which was not far from where I lived, and I shared that story. And it was really, it was the important thing to do.
Right, very good.
James Eggert, Kenya 1, 1964 to 1966. In late 64, we were oriented to the project of, it's called Land Settlement, Ministry of Land Settlement, helping them buy out the British lands that they had colonialized since about 1918 or 1919. And there was roughly about 1 million acres that were transferred to black African hands. And from these large farms, we attempted to make them into viable but smaller units, 30, 40, 50 acres, with subsistence and a cash crop. And by the time we left in 66, we had transferred quite a bit of land. I can't say exactly how much, but a big portion of the project had been completed. So that was a very well-defined project, and we felt, we were certainly assisting the Kenya government, along with a lot of British expatriates. Jomo Kenyatta, despite all the Mau Mau problems, welcomed the British to stick around and help with this transfer, and a lot of them did. So we got to know a wide section of the Kenya population, Asians, Africans, British, and of course many Kenyans.
Russell Dryfogle, Columbia, Missouri, and I was in Kenya 1 and taught school in Maseno Secondary School, which is in western Kenya. And I served from 1964 to 66, and I'm cheating on 64 because we landed on the 31st of December of 1964. So I really served in 1965 and 66. And now that there's a very famous book called The Untold Story of an African Family, the Obama family, I realized that Maseno is the school where Barack Obama Sr. was a student, and he quit before he got expelled. Thank you.
David Mester. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Kenya as an agricultural advisor. from January of 1965 to December of 1966, almost 2 years to the day.
Staying a minute with those 3 goals of the Peace Corps, it sounds like a big one that comes up for you is the promoting better understanding of Americans, but also your own person-to-person, your own growth. In that,
oh, it was tremendous. I gained so much from that experience. Again, I was just the youngest kid in the class, if you would, intimidated by the group, at least to start with. So the growth, personal growth, the respect that I think I earned about just myself and what I could do. I don't know how do we even explain it. It was so rewarding, and you know, you can't hardly pay for something like that. You know, it was a fantastic experience. I tell my wife that too. You know, other than my decision to marry her, this was the best decision I've made in my life.
Bud Paulding. I was in Kenya Ed 1, 1964 to 1966, stationed in Nyeri, Kenya, facing Mount Kenya, boys secondary school, Giakanja for boys. Wonderful school, traveled all around, climbed the mountains, met the wonderful people. Great time, a high mark of my life.
Jim Jorgensen, Kenya, 1964 to 66. Turbo Kenya.
Okay, now just...
When my roommate and I were assigned to Turbo, we went up there with the land settlement officer, and he said, well, yeah, you got a nice house. It's a guest house on the Newton Ranch. And he said, we saw it this morning, and he said there was a couple puff adders, snakes, sitting on the mattresses in your room. And I go, holy Swahili. So we got there that night. There were no puff adders, but we made our beds very carefully, and we did later on. We found snakes in and around our room in the next 6 months. Thankful that the puff adders are very slow moving, sluggish snakes, and they're deadly, but they're not there. And one time I was on my Piki, and I was going down on my one trail, and I look up, and there is a cobra comes up. And the noise of the motorcycle had excited him. And I go this way, and he strikes at the side of like that, and I go rear end over tea kettle, and I can remember the little Watoto saying, that crazy Mzungu, he can't ride a motorcycle. Okay, so the next thing I go, nyoka, which is snake, kalisana, dangerous. And you can hear him, crazy white man. Those little kids were out playing around in the grass. And then all of a sudden they get around there, and all of a sudden that snake came up again, and those little kids were running by me 45 miles an hour. I went back in '73, 4 or 5 of us just got together and we went back. And then we went back in 2005, she and I, with a retired game warden here who does safaris, leads them to different game parks in South Africa, and we put it together in East Africa, and so we went back. And then I went back with my roommate. He and I and some of his extended family went back in 2007 for 3 weeks. So I guess I've been back 3 times. Yeah.
I'm curious about it. Say, I was there, well, St. Amur, and I went back in like '71, and I was amazed at how nothing had changed. So I'm curious. In fact, when I arrived in Mwanza, people just sort of waved at me like I'd been on safari. It's like I hadn't gone anywhere.
I'm curious what it was like for you in '73 when you went back. Was the same thing?
I saw some of the same people. They knew me. And I was Bonham Kuba because I was heavier, and I was Bonham Zay because I was much older. See, that was like 10 years later. And when I went back in 5 and 7, I saw a few, but most of the people that I worked with were dead because they were older than I was. I was a 22-year-old. I went right out of college, so they were 30, 40, 50, which would make them 60, 70, 80, 90, and they were, most of them were gone. But
and how about changes to the area? Does it seem much different?
Some areas it was just the same. However, you know, more roads, but more chuck holes, more potholes.
My name's Murray Smith. I was in Kenya. I was a high school teacher in 1965 and 1966. I was Giakanja High School, about 100 miles north of Nairobi. And the best story is that a very good student friend of mine, currently an MP over there, he and his family have become good friends of ours, and we've visited each other, and it's just been a wonderful, lifelong adventure.